welcome, everyone. Today, I'm so excited to have one of my networking friends, and as I do all the time when they have books, I hold the book up. So this is the book, "Win the Job and Thrive in a Multi-Generational Workplace," and it was written by Mark Beal, Frank Kovacs, and Kadir Porter. So, Mark, you've written a lot of different books on this topic. So, what got you really interested in the topic to even start writing about it?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the inspiration for any books around the workplace, including the book you just held up, which I appreciate, and a previous book that I authored with Frank called Career and Transition back in 2019, was really attending these career networking support groups, right? Whether the Breakfast Club of New Jersey in East Brunswick, or the PSG of Mercer County Group in Princeton, or any of these other groups. I'm fortunate enough to have been invited to present dating back to my very first book. My first book in 2017 was titled 101 Lessons They Never Taught You in College. And basically that book was 101 lessons in response to students who said, how do I get a job? How do I write a resume? How do I write a cover letter? How do I dress for an interview? How do I conduct a phone interview versus in person? Anyway, I wrote that book in 2017, and it was really to help these students, but it ended up being a book that really was helping any job seeker. And so I got invited. I think my first ever speech on that topic was with PSG of Mercer County in Princeton, so probably in 2018. And I just left there more inspired than when I got there, more energized by just the collaboration, the everybody helping each other, no matter where they were in the job search process. People sharing contacts, sharing information, sharing insights. And so every time I've gone to one, and I know you've been to many, many more than I, but every time I've gone to one, I leave there, I drive away inspired, energized, feel like I've contributed to a better purpose or a higher purpose. And so that was the motivation. Speaking at those career networking groups was the motivation. So that's been the motivation since like 2018. And then Career and Transition, the book came out in 2019, well received by media, well received by job seekers. And then the pandemic hit, as we all know, March or so 2020. And in real time, we're going through a transformation at the workplace. All of a sudden, for all of us like you and I, who traditionally went to work 5 or more days a week, and commuted maybe, in my case, 2.5 hours each way every day to New York, that just changed. Overnight, it changed, right? And now all of a sudden, there was a thing called remote work and hybrid work and 4 days a week work and WFA, work from anywhere. And so Frank reached out to me in April or so 2020 and said, let's write a book now about the changing workplace, which is going to be really important for those seeking jobs because the workplace is changing. Anyway, we started writing this book, Win the Job, Thrive. We started writing this book in around April 2020. And then somewhere later that year, it just kind of got pushed to the side a little bit. And then earlier this year, I had a conversation with Kadir Porter, who's the other co-author, former student of mine, by the way, who's now an executive recruiter for a very large global company. And he and I sat down for lunch, I think April or May of this year. And I said, hey, Kadir, you're full-time in this executive recruiting. Us as job seekers and applicants, we don't know all the things that go on behind the scenes. And I think we spent about 2 hours just getting a better understanding of the process. And I left there, and I think even before I left, I said, you have to contribute to a book. And then I went home and my brain started working. I'm like, we have the book that we started. We never finished it. Let me go back and read what we wrote. Let me see if that's applicable. And a lot of it was. And then let's add some new lessons and chapters. So long story short, I know. But that was kind of the journey. So this book did begin in March, April 2020, and it finally was published in January 2024. So we can say almost 4 years in the making.
I think for me, one of the takeaways is I saw a lot of similar things that have happened even over the years because I was reading the book, but there's a lot of assumptions that still happen. Even the idea of a multi-generational workplace, we can all learn from each other in all different ways. And I think it's not a case of us against them. And that still comes out. I mean, I mentor students at William Patterson, as what I do. And they look at the discrimination and setbacks in a different way than people of our age do. And it shouldn't be that way. it's finding the right people together, whether you're mentoring younger or supporting older people. And I think that's one of the disconnects that happens, in a general way.
I completely agree with you. One of the big messages in the book, and it's a message I deliver anytime anyone wants to chat, generations deliver significant value to the workplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so don't need to go through all of it now, but you and I can, as folks who have lots of experience, well, there's great value in lots of experience. There's great value in the lessons we've learned, our failures, our successes, our contacts with our networks, which are vast. Well, Gen Zers who have recently joined the workforce in the last year, 2 or 3, they don't have vast networks yet. They don't have a lot of experience yet. They don't have a lot of lessons learned and successes yet. But they bring innovation. They bring a tech savviness to the workplace. They bring an entrepreneurial spirit. So we can all, as you said, complement each other and help each other and work very successfully together and effectively together. Well, we first have to recognize that it doesn't matter what your age, right? From, I'm making it up, 21 to 81, we all deliver value to the organization, to the workplace. We just have to understand what's that value and how can we, I always say 1 + 1 = 3. How can you and I, 1 + 1, what can we do together that can really produce something special?
One thing I've noticed and this is probably an age thing as much as anything else, when I was in the workforce, I was almost afraid to ask certain questions for fear of maybe being that, I don't want to come out as being dumb or whatever, but the younger generation, they don't care. They're going to ask anything of anybody because they want to know the answer. And, and that's a great thing. And that's something I've kind of learned as I've gotten older. I'm going to ask a question if I don't know, and I'm not going to bluff my way through. And that's something which I find with the younger folks. I don't know if you find that as well.
Yeah, I do too. I think, I think about, so I officially entered the full-time workforce. I interned before this, but officially entered, say, in 1989. Well before social media, well before, even in 1989, we were using fax machines. We did not have email. We used phone and in person, right? But I think to your point, there was like this very structured hierarchy and chain of command, right? And you did what you were kind of told, and you had a list. And at the end of the day, you check that list off, and then you did it again the next day. Where I think to your point, Gen Z is kind of broken the mold. They want to learn, understand, ask questions. Can we try this or do that? Hey, at college, I used this thing called Slack. Have we tried Slack here? Can we use Slack? Yeah. So I agree with you. They've got this, in a positive way, maybe a disruptive kind of, let's challenge the status quo, but in a positive way that can result in some pretty, powerful results, as opposed to just cookie cutter. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to do what they tell me, and that's all I'm going to do.
And the other thing I've noticed, because I've talked to people, they're much more important. They find a work-life balance much more important to them. As you brought up, you'd be in the office 9 to 5. That was it. Now it's like, I'm going to work, whether I work from home. This is what my schedule. Maybe I'm going to work 4 days, but I can get the work done then within that time frame. And that's a big pushback from an HR and a hiring manager standpoint, who are not used to that because you mentioned the structure.
Yeah. So there's a couple of quotes. They're not my quotes, but I like to use them. And I don't mean to offend anyone in using them because, again, I can look at myself as the old Gen Xer. Older generations, we lived to work. We lived to go to work 7 days a week and for 20 hours a day or whatever, right? Younger generations work to live. They work to actually go enjoy life, travel, experience, all that. It's a completely different mindset. And then to your other point, younger generations work smarter, not harder. I think we worked harder, maybe not smarter. And so what I mean by that is there was value in that. I got to the office at 8:30 in the morning and I stayed till 8:30 at night. But it really should be, what did I do in the 12 hours, not how many hours I was there. And for Gen Z, it's like, we can accomplish this maybe in an hour or 2 or 3. Like, they can get things done again because of the digital acumen, the tech savviness, and other things. So that's a whole different point. It's a whole different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think that mindset, though, does work well for where we are today with either fully remote, hybrid working, maybe 4-day work weeks, WFA, work from anywhere, because a Gen Zer, unlike, again, I'll point the finger at myself, I spent every day I commuted to New York, I spent 5 hours commuting. It took from where I'm sitting now to get to New York on a good day, 2.5 hours each way on a good day. Gen Zers would never do that. They shouldn't even consider that. To them, that's like a waste of time. I look back on it and say, that is a lot of time, right? So for them, and I've heard a lot of Gen Zers come back to my classroom and talk about this, he'll be like, days I don't have to commute anywhere, I actually start my workday earlier. I actually get some work done at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. and get ahead of it. Then I actually have time maybe at 10, 11, or 12 to actually go for a power walk or a run and I get refreshed and recharged. And then I actually am powering through the afternoon. So at the end of the day, as they say, I might actually put even more hours I do when I work from home than when I go to work, but I'm doing it in a way that works really well for my lifestyle. I can work in a little bit of fitness, a little bit of both physical and mental fitness. But I'm not skipping on my duties. I'm not shortcutting anything. I just don't have to hop on a train for an hour each way, which is 2 hours of my day. That's now 2 hours I've just given back. So you're right. They really prioritize work-life balance. I really always said I felt millennials ushered that in, and Gen Z's kind of taken the baton. Mm-hmm. And they also prioritize this idea of, do I have to go physically into an office every day of the week? Could I go in maybe once or twice a week? So I think that blend of what I call HI, human interaction, a couple of days a week, they like, but they also like the idea of, boy, if I don't have to commute on Monday and Friday, that sounds great too. So I think that's where we are. And I feel like that's where we are with most companies. Everyone I speak to, it's like a question I ask everyone. Every time I have a guest lecturer come into my classes at Rutgers University, one of the questions I ask is just, hey, by the way, where is your company now with full-time in the office, hybrid, remote? And it's a mixture in 2024. But I would say the most I've heard anyone, and again, most of my guest speakers are marketing, advertising, public relations. The most I've heard any of them say is, I'm in 3 days a week. I haven't heard more than that. I haven't heard 4 or 5. And I'd say the majority are in 1 or 2 days a week. And that's pretty much how it is in today's world.
Now you mentioned you mentioned you teach at Rutgers University. So what are the classes that you teach there, and what type of students are in your classes? I want to give a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 30 plus years in public relations and marketing at an agency in New York. So our focus was developing campaigns for major companies, major brands. A lot of those campaigns were around major sports and entertainment properties. So the Olympic Games, the Super Bowl halftime show, the Rolling Stones, NCAA March Madness. So that's fun stuff. That's great, right? Working on that and working with big brands. So in 2019, I made a transition from that to Rutgers invited me to teach full-time in their School of Communication and Information as what they call a assistant professor of practice. So I don't have a PhD. I'm not a PhD, but I do have 30 plus years of experience. And so they have me teaching 300 level, 400 level, and graduate level courses in public relations and integrated marketing. Mm-hmm. So I don't have any freshman courses. I will have a couple of sophomores in my 300 level PR course, but the bulk of my students are juniors, seniors who are about to graduate here in a few weeks, and then graduate students. And they're all studying communication, but really they're studying things like social media, influencer marketing, public relations, content marketing, experiential marketing, and then going off and having careers in those industries. So I probably have, I don't know what the number would be now, but let's just say a couple thousand students who've graduated, and now they work at major agencies, major media companies, corporations in some sort of marketing communication role.
Do you find that do you find that those graduating now have a different expectation upon leaving in terms of a job or in terms of how they're applying to jobs? Because especially with the different layoffs and things, I remember when I was actually invited into Rutgers to do a class with a couple of other people and teach about Scrum, a lot of the kids there were actually talking about going into consulting roles instead of working full-time permanent, because we give them an opportunity to try different things out as opposed to applying online to a specific company. So I'm wondering if you see that as well.
I've seen a little bit of some students who've actually gone off and started their own social digital media companies. So That was not something I saw, say, prior to 2020. So students who feel they have a good knowledge, good understanding of content, social media, create content production and marketing, and they've actually launched their own 1, 2, 3 person social media company. So I've seen that, but I would say the bulk of my students take I don't want to call it the traditional route, but they're going to an agency somewhere, PR agency, advertising agency, social media agency, and they're working there for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or more years. And then some are transitioning then and going into the corporate side. So they're taking that same kind of work, but now they're working for corporations across major media companies, major consumer companies, major healthcare, pharmaceutical companies. The thing I would say, one thing that I'll say might be a little different, and I always use kind of 2020 as kind of a big line in the sand and say before and after. I'd say one of the things that is different, and it's in the book, by the way. Unlike, I think, when I was, again, 80s, 90s, you had your focus exclusively was the job, right? Your job. I mean, that was your thing. I'd say more and more in today's world, they have their job, but they all have a side hustle too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the side hustle could be passion. So I won't name her, but I have one student who works full-time in experiential marketing, event marketing, and works with big companies, big brands. But her passion is music, and her passion is songwriting and singing. And so on the side, she's producing albums. She's writing her music. She's performing in New York and New Jersey and other places. That balance is very helpful to her because it gives her an outlet aside from her day job to pursue that passion. So I do see a lot of students now when they graduate, they have that passion on the side that they're pursuing, whether it's generating revenue or not, but it's a passion that really complements their work and gives them an outlet where they can still pursue that passion, whatever that passion may be.
I wanted to put in a couple of comments. I'm a little behind here. Veronique, I like the fact that the younger ones are unafraid to ask questions. I just wish that they would see value in the experience of their elders.
We kind of just talked about that to your point. So, right. So the key is whether I'm on the young end at 21, 22, 23, or I'm on the older end, whatever the older end might be, right? 50, 60, 70s, she hits on a great point. The day we start the job or we onboard, we got to recognize everyone in my organization, everyone on my team, we all deliver great value. We just need to, as she noted, we have to recognize that.
Right.
But I truly believe, and I know you agree with me, every single person in an organization or on a team delivers value. So let's figure out how my value can complement your value and how we can achieve some really measurable results.
And I know David Solomon said they have to prove that they're getting the work done and doing it right. There are still lessons to be learned, and they need to put in the time and make the usual mistakes. And that's something, we've both learned over the years. We made our share of mistakes. You learn the hard way, whether you own the mistake or not. That's part of experience. And, I know Nancy Aronson referred to a common experience rich, which is a nice way of saying a lot of people of our age.
Yeah.
Brendan Miller talks about it.
Yeah.
And it's so important for every generation to understand what each generation can offer. And that's kind of, I don't want to say it's a disconnect, but that's something that gets lost along the way. Because now that when you interview at our age, you're being interviewed by people half our age. That doesn't mean they're any more or less qualified.
Sure.
But they do things differently. They have a mindset, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, it's right. We've all got to have this mindset of, again, I hate to go back to it, but that each and every person, no matter their generation, delivers value, delivers strengths and skills and experiences to the organization and to the job and to the team. But it's going to be different types of value, whether you're 25 or 55 or 65, right? It's going to be different because it's based on that experience, those experiences you've had. So yeah, it's definitely a mindset, and we all have to have that, I guess, for that open and positive mindset that everyone in my team, my organization, is delivering value, will deliver value, and we have to make sure that we leverage that.
I think that's a big thing. I think most generations do understand the purpose of having something like that, but it's the purpose, but then it's putting it into place, and it's having, whether it's multi-generational teams, which are important as opposed to having a multi-generational organization. Because if you have a team of people our age and they're working against a team of people just out of school, there's going to be a lot of pushback, as opposed to having different teams with different age groups on the team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it goes back to, I know you and I and all others all know this, but you also don't want to have the same, 10 people with the same personalities and 10 people with the same, mindset on a team either. You need diversity, right? You need diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of background, which comes in so many different shapes and sizes. One of those is age, but there's so many others. But you're right. You don't want to have 10 of you, Ken, and 10 of me on a team, because we're going to be like, have the blinders on, and we're going to miss a lot of things. But your point, that diversity of age and experience is a key one, because you're going to get again, great value from all those different generations.
And I know when I work at William Patterson, a lot of the kids I work with, they are the first generation in this country. So they don't necessarily have the experience from their parents to give them support. So they don't know better.
Yeah.
And they're not sure where to start. And it's important. I get a lot of enjoyment from mentoring them because I see them kind of like a sponge, and they take it all in. And I'm sure you do too with the kids in your classes. I mean, they want to learn, but they want to be able to feel comfortable learning from us, as opposed to like, us saying, well, why am I going to give up my experience to someone else? What's in it for me, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I say this all the time. I spent the first 30 years of my career very focused on agency and clients and, winning new business as often as I could. I mean, and now these 30 years, I'm really focused on being purposeful and helping all job seekers. Obviously, I help many that are 20, 21, 22, 23 because they're my students. But to your point, every day via Zoom, in class, in person, they're coming to me. Can you help me with this? Whether it's resume or prepping for an interview or writing a thank you note after. And so I agree with you. At least my experience with the current college students and recent graduates is they are eager to learn. They are sponges. They're asking smart questions. They want to take all that and then pursue what they're attempting to pursue. But I have that experience every day where I'm being asked and invited to assist and help them in their job search process, their career. And I love that. I love the collaboration.
Sometimes it's just, and you can probably relate to this in a different way than me. Textbooks are not enough sometimes to get the information. You actually have to talk to people in the industry who can share their insights, because textbooks are old and they're very basic, and there is no one size fits all. That's why it's so important to have conversations, with people.
Completely agree. So each semester I teach approximately 4 courses, and each semester I bring in approximately 50 guest speakers across the 4 courses. So last night was an executive from Johnson & Johnson. Last week was an executive from T-Mobile. To me, to your point, I bring them in for a reason. One is they obviously tie into the course material, the content, all that. But equally important, they share their career journey, their career path, their lessons learned, their internships, how they were able to secure this job or that job. And so kind of selfishly, that's really why I bring them in, is so that students can soak that in, take that in, meet after the class is over, engage with them one-on-one, add them to their network. There's just great power from those insights that come from that. There's even sometimes directly jobs and internships that come. I've had plenty of guest speakers who've finished the guest lecture and the student walked up, shook their hand, looked in the eye, and they said, hey, I've been really trying to maybe get an internship here or a job. And I've seen in 24 hours students convert that guest speaker into actually a full-time job or a full-time internship.
One thing I have found, because I've had people of my age, they have a hard time finding networking groups and networking events because they don't have the networks per se to know which events to attend. So yeah, I can point them in the right direction. Are there specific types of groups, or do you have that same issue? They don't really know what groups to attend or how to actually get out there and network?
Yeah, I think so. I think at the, we'll just say at the college level, right? Students at the college level, to your point, they haven't been around as long. They don't have as much vast experience. They don't have vast networks yet. But the good news is, and again, I teach at Rutgers University, so I can't speak to all schools, but at Rutgers, there are deep career success programs individually at the individual schools. So at the School of Communication and Information, we have a career advisors who are helping every single day with everything from resumes to cover letters to prepping for job interviews to even providing internships and jobs. But then university-wide, we have a very vast and large career exploration and success group that is helping all students. So at least students at that level, right on campus within a few steps of their dorm or their apartment, have access to those. And then, of course, every few months, job fairs and career networking sessions and mingles and all those, which are happening on an ongoing basis. So as a student, there's a lot on your campus to take advantage of before you even go off campus as far as resources to help you from a career standpoint.
So I know William Pastor, we're going to have a get together with the mentors and mentees next month. I have every week I get together with 2 mentors and mentees, and it's a great networking opportunity. Now, I'd be curious, is there one age group that you find is not thriving or has more of a challenge than the others? Or is it just pretty much, every group kind of has to figure out their place?
I think every group, as they get to that college and then preparing for the transition to college career, is figuring out their place, right? So I think I said this last night in class, as I graduated in 89, which seems like a long time ago, but there was no LinkedIn.
Right.
There was no, there was no email. There were no, well, if there were websites, they weren't as vast or as depth as they are today. There weren't jobs posted online. There wasn't a place where you could go and hit careers, right?
Right.
So we had to figure out how to navigate that, right? That was good old fashioned, a lot of phone calls, a lot of internships, a lot of in-person meetings. Well, in today's world now, you've got a lot of resources right at your fingertips. I just sent a student a list of 30 agencies and the links to their career pages with jobs. Well, I couldn't do that 30 years ago. It didn't exist.
Right.
And so I think I think you're navigating based on where you are in your career and where you're trying to get to and what are the resources, the channels, both again, online, but also in person through things like career advisors on campus or career networking groups like we talked about earlier.
Yeah. I find, and this is definitely a generational thing, I work with a lot of people at Lee Hecht Harrison who have just lost their jobs and they're going to be looking for another job. So they'll send me a resume and I have to grit my teeth sometimes because it's a resume from 20, 25 years ago and it has information that's on there that has no place anymore. And someone of your age group would absolutely never think to include references upon request. They would not think to include an address because they're not mailing it anymore.
Yeah. Sure. Sure. But I do, if I threw out a number, I'd say I probably review about 5 resumes a day from current college students. So I'm just making somewhere around there. And, students, again, because they're early in the process, they're really just learning how to even develop a resume and write a resume. So, a few things I see with my current students, and this is not just this year, but last year and the year before, is, I try to emphasize, hard skills. Like, so if you know things like Canva, which has only been around for a few years, if in marketing, any kind of video editing platforms and work on those. If you're going to look for a job in influencer marketing, well, you should know TikTok and Instagram and other channels like that. So I tell them those are all hard skills. Those need to be on your resume, featured somewhere. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times that's an eye opener. Like, wow, I didn't realize that. I didn't know that, even things like Excel and PowerPoint were important to put down. But I say, no, absolutely. Because again, in hiring you, whether it's in an agency or somewhere else, they're looking for recent college graduates who have some of those hard skills. I've been saying a lot in the past month, and I think I feel good about what I've been saying. Hopefully no one will be offended by this. But what I say is hard skills get you interviewed, soft skills win the job. And so all I mean by that, and again, I'm sure I'll get challenged on it a little bit, but those hard skills, when you apply for the job, are you familiar with this platform or this system or this tool or this, right? And I think if you have that and they're looking for that for the job, they're going to want to talk to you. But once you get on a Zoom call or something like this, because it may not be in person, can you have a conversation? Can you engage people? That's soft skills, right? And so I think the hard skills get you noticed, but the soft skills, if they're interviewing 10, 12 candidates, at the end of the day, they're going to be like, I really enjoyed the conversation with that candidate from that college or that school or that university. And that may be the candidate that ultimately wins the job because they were able to engage. They were able to engage in dialogue and conversation and convert the interview into an actual conversation as opposed to just question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
A lot of the things that I do is I will say to a person, I'll say, what's the job title that you want? And we'll go on LinkedIn. And then I'll say, what do you call your experience level? And we'll break it down from there. And then I'll say, is there an industry? Break it down from there. So I'm going to call up a job spec and I'm going to say, how many of these skills do you have?
Yes.
You may not be applying for the job per se, but how many of these skills do you have? And if they're not on your resume or LinkedIn, why not? Yes. Because there's a certain assumption and that becomes a different type of an aha moment because they're only including what they think they need to include.
That's correct. So we just had the same conversation last night in class. You're absolutely right. As I said to my students, you want to create a resume that is kind of a living, breathing document. But each time you apply, you really need to look at the specs for the job, the criteria for the job, the qualifications. And you maybe have those, but maybe you're calling it something else. So you want to make sure you're using their language. Or to your point, you may actually have it and not even have it on your resume and realize, oh, I need to include that in my resume because that's
or maybe it's a different job title, which is the other aha moment. I did this at company A, but now it's called this at company B.
Exactly. I do the same thing. It's funny you just brought that up because I had 4 hours ago, I had this call with someone who's like 10 years into their career. And I went through the same exercise like you went through. I said, all right, based on where you live, I said, put a pin on a map.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how far potentially, if you had to go to work 3, 4, or 5 days a week, how far are you willing to commute? 5 miles, 10 miles, 20, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay, so that's within that area. Are there companies that you want to target? Are there companies you're familiar with? Are there companies you've researched and read about? Okay, so that's one area. But I said in today's world, as we discussed, there's a lot of companies where you only have to go in, maybe never, maybe fully remote, or maybe going once or twice a week. So now that expands a little bit more. So maybe there's companies in New York City that you don't want to necessarily commute 5 days a week, but you don't mind going in 2 days a week. And now we want to let's identify those targets. And as you said, part of that research and identification is industry, passion. Mm-hmm. So I may really want to get into social media and content creation and content marketing, but I really want to do it in music and entertainment. All right, well, those are key factors we have to consider because now we've just really set, some benchmarks for where we want to take it, as opposed to, I really like social media, and honestly, I could do it anywhere. I could do it in healthcare. I could do it in entertainment. It doesn't matter to me where I go. So it's funny. I ask pretty much the same questions you ask, and it's kind of the start of my session, especially with someone new I've never met. And then as soon as I have those answers, now I feel like I can productively help them.
I definitely want to call out a couple of things, Veronica. Every age group is finding the job hunt difficult, even the young with the newest knowledge in their pockets. I would tend to agree from what I've seen. I think their issue is the opposite of someone of our age. I'll put it back up. Their issue is that they're looking for experience, and most places want experience, as opposed to experienced, and most places won't pay. But I don't know if you find that true or not as well.
So the first part of that, every age group is finding the job hunt difficult. Completely agree. Right? I say this all the time, Veronique. Each and every one of us, and I know we all know this, but I'd like to say it anyway. Each and every one of us is on our own unique career journey, right? There are no two journeys the same at all. We're all different stages. We're all different places. We all have different experience, right? And so I do think, that it's, I had this, like I said, I had a call several hours ago with someone who has 10 years experience in marketing. And the first thing she said to me on the call was, my job search is, I'm hitting dead ends. I'm applying everywhere. I'm not even getting up to bat, right? That's someone who is 33, 34, right? A millennial. And I can have the same conversation with someone who's 23 and someone who's 53 and someone who's 63. So I completely agree with you. I said the other day, I think we're in a very volatile market right now. Every day you read about layoffs. And at the same time, I also hear from people like, hey, I just got the job. So not a lot of consistency right now. I feel like we're getting both sides where, during the Great Resignation, there were all of a sudden these jobs opened up and people were leaving jobs to go to jobs. But right now I feel like it's a combination of both. A lot of people being laid off and a lot of people looking for jobs, and also a lot of people, who I get calls from saying, or on LinkedIn say, I just got this job. I just started here, So it's a really interesting place we are in, I think, here in early 2024 as far as the job search, the job hunt. But I completely agree that it's a challenge for all of us. It doesn't matter what your age is.
What I think part of it is a lot of people were hired from an IT perspective during COVID for jobs that were needed online and all that. And there's been a little bit of pushback since then because those jobs aren't needed as much. But I also think that the issue is also from a salary standpoint. I think a lot of people are being let go and are being replaced by people that make less money because of the pressures perhaps for the companies for their revenue. But again, I don't know the answer per se. It's just a best guess on my part because I'm seeing a lot of layoffs where I am, but I'm also not seeing, I'm seeing layoffs in all different industries. There is no one industry that's right. Not affected. So it's across the board.
It is. It's across the board. And as you said, and it's been historical, right? Budgets and dollars and everything also plays a role in this too, right? As far as where a company is, how they're doing, right? I just had this conversation with someone in the finance industry this morning where they said, well, some of these layoffs are just so that maybe public companies can make their number, right, for the next quarter, right? And so,
exactly. And that goes to the whole real estate question. A lot of people, that's why they push people back into work because they're paying for the real estate. Now, that's a little consolation to someone who's lost their job.
Correct. Correct.
What I keep finding is a lot of people don't have their networks up to date. And now it's all of a sudden I got to play catch up with my networks. All the time I was working, now I have to get up to speed. And in your case, it's having your kids build their networks.
Yeah.
My kids, I've said to them, why don't you connect with this friend, that friend that you knew from high school and college? Why don't you connect with that parent, whoever it is, just to build the network, because you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. And I first day of every semester in every class, and then the last day I remind them this. I kind of give 4 pieces of advice. First is I just say, pursue your passion. What do you love? What do you love to do? You love music, you love sports, you love this, you love that, whatever it is, pursue that. Dream big. I do believe that anything can happen. Anything is possible. 3, though, I say, and I borrow this from Ted Lasso, be curious and consistently ask questions. Wherever you are, you have someone comes in as a guest lecturer, guest speaker, or you're at a career networking group and you've got someone who's coming in and presenting. I mean, get as much value out as you can out of that individual. Ask them any question, because I'm a big believer that questions lead to answers that open doors to opportunities. And it could be someone you meet at a backyard barbecue. It could be someone you meet at a coffee shop. It could be someone you meet at a career networking group. It could be someone who's a guest lecturer in a class. But ask them a question, which could lead to 2 questions, lead to 3. But if you leave that room and don't ask, you missed an opportunity there just to gain insight and information that could help you, on your unique path. So, yeah, big believer in just consistently being curious and always asking questions of everybody.
I would take it one step further. Once you know who the lecturer is, reach out to them right away. Don't wait. Don't wait till after the lecture.
Yeah, I have. It's funny. I have a great graduate student who, a lot of students will connect with the guest speaker on LinkedIn while they're speaking up on stage or right after. She used to connect with them all before. So I would, weeks in advance, I'd say, Jane Doe is coming tonight to class from XYZ Company. She'd reach out a week in advance, connect and say, I look forward to hearing you next week. By the time the lecturer came to class, they already knew each other and they were on a first name basis. So smart, so strategic. And she did that with every guest speaker. And so when they came to class, they'd say, hey, where is so-and-so? And she'd be right there and they'd have a conversation like they've known each other for years.
So this is the other thing. Whoops.
There we go.
Are you getting any sense that some of the job loss stems from the interest in using AI to do the job? And I don't know how much you use AI at Rutgers or.
We discuss AI quite a bit in my, again, public relations and marketing classes. And at least in our industry right now, I really do believe we are in a test and learn phase with AI. I think, brands like Coca-Cola and others are using AI, but I really think we're nowhere near where we're going to be in 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So I don't know, at least again, in kind of my world, which again would be public relations, marketing, social media, if AI is replacing jobs as of today. I don't know that. I haven't heard that. And no one's called me and said, by the way, I've been replaced by AI technology. But I do think that AI is in this test and learn phase. I think like we're in chapter 1 of AI. And
I recommend people think about AI governance jobs within AI that you can pivot from, because it's a new industry. They're going to need AI best practices, someone that's going to actually be able from a company. Like years ago, I did a social media marketing plan for a company I worked at, what employees could and couldn't do, because it was kind of new back then. So now you have to have a plan for how you can use AI. Are you going to use AI for content that you do, whatever it is? I definitely see that as something that would definitely be something worth down the road.
And most of my guest speakers, again, all my guest speakers are coming from, again, marketing somewhere. And I'd say every guest speaker this semester said, I'm testing AI. I'm trying AI. I'm experimenting with AI. So in spring 2024, at least that's where I'm seeing it with, we'll call it in marketing.
I think the most important thing, and I'm just going to put a couple of things. Linda Brubaker is a fellow job coach. She recommends the same connection strategy for job seekers prior to interviews. You definitely want to connect with people in advance. It may be a little bit difficult with a hiring manager how far you're going to go, but you want to use a certain amount of getting ahead of the game. How do you differentiate yourself? And I know a lot of times I also have people on the platform look at other people's profiles to find out why their profiles stand out the way they do.
Sure.
And then you get another aha moment. And it's like in the about section. You mean I can add that there? Sure, you can. No, and I say this, my mantra is no one is reading an about section, but it's searchable.
Yeah. I love aha moment. I have aha moments all day long. So thank you for that. But I completely agree. And to your point, you may not be able to get to the specifically to say the recruiter or ultimately the person who's is making the hire for their department. But as I tell my students every day, I just did this 5 times today at least. Let me know where you applied. If I have a contact there, I will call that person and I will get the link to them and say, hey, my student, John Doe, great student about to graduate, just applied for this job at your company. Can you spend 5 minutes with them and give them some insights about the company, maybe the application process, maybe even the interview process? Again, nothing confidential, just anything you can share with them that will help prepare them better to successfully compete against the other applicants. And so, of course, you and I don't know everybody everywhere.
Right.
But as I like to say, someone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone there. And we got to do as best we can to connect those dots and at least get those insights, because those are major aha moments in prepping for a job interview or in prepping for round 1, round 2, round 3.
Well, a perfect example, someone wants to work at Johnson & Johnson. I know someone that I worked with as a career coach at Rutgers at the New Star Career Network when it was there, and we've stayed in touch. And so he's a first connection of mine, and he may or may not work in an area, but again, he'd be a perfect person. He said it to me, and he said it to others again and again. Just tell me who it is, and then that's how we all kind of support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to, and we know this, all of us know this on the call. You just got to take that proactive step of asking, requesting, do you know some, right? Because if you don't do that, you're just going into that interview, for lack of a better word, kind of.
My thing is, I want you to say, I am willing to help you, but I'd appreciate you being as specific as possible. Not that I don't want to help you, but the more I can be, the more I know about the situation, the better I can help you with what you're going through.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's funny. I got a note in the mail, old-fashioned mail yesterday from Stan Phelps, who's an incredible motivational speaker based in North Carolina. And I quoted him in the book because one of his famous quotes, hopefully I don't get it wrong, is something along the line. It's not who they know. It's not who your contact knows. Sorry. It's not who you know. It's who your contact knows. Something like that. The point is, every conversation leads to more conversations and more, as we say, door openings and things like that. So everyone you speak to potentially can open the door to others who they know.
So, Mark, thanks a lot for the opportunity today to chat. When this is over, if you want to put a link in the chat to where the book is, if people want to purchase it, that would be great. It'll be on. I'll put it in the feed later on because I know that you can actually post a comment in there now. But I want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope you got some really great information from Mark. Someday, Mark, I hope we meet again in person.
Oh, we will. We will. Absolutely. I appreciate you inviting me on. I really enjoy this, and I love I just love your style, your engaging style of interviews. Really appreciate that.
All right. So have a great day, everyone. I'm just going to check one thing here. Oh, actually, Mark put something in the private chat.
I'm sorry. I just put that was the link to the book. That's all.
All right. So that sounds great. So have a great day, everyone. Have a great week, and we will all talk soon. Bye.
Thank you again. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.